Hi friend, today I'm going to wade into potentially quite a controversial topic. Is a cooked or a raw vegan diet better, and why? Now there are quite a lot of strong opinions on both sides of this debate, and I admit I do have a bias, but I'm going to try and approach this in an objective way as I can. So let's dive in. Now the first point that I'd like to sort of think about is that raw vegan diets are going to center pretty much around fruits, delicate vegetables, and maybe a few nuts and seeds. Now there's no doubt in my mind that these are very healthy foods and we should be eating plenty of them. However, they're not the only healthy foods. Foods like root vegetables, grains, and legumes are consistently associated in studies with excellent health. But these all need to be cooked so they wouldn't be included on a raw vegan diet. And so I would ask the obvious question, why deprive yourself of this great nutrition? There is ample evidence that cooked foods are associated with great longevity and excellent health outcomes. For example, in the book How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger. And I did a review of that book. You can watch it right here if you would like. But many of the foods discussed in that book do need to be cooked. And interestingly, cooked foods are really a hallmark of many of the longest living cultures and peoples throughout history. In particular, I'm thinking here of the blue zones, these areas that produce an unusually high number of people living into their 80s, 90s, and even 100s. And so these all eat a cooked food diet. For example, in Okinawa, they have a lot of cooked purple sweet potatoes. And in Nicoya in Costa Rica, their diet consists to a large extent of beans, corn, and squash. Again, all of these need to be cooked. So I think there's so much evidence that cooking foods is really healthy for us that I'm not sure why you would want to exclude these foods. Now there's no doubt that people, when they adopt a raw vegan diet, can see excellent health benefits. And this is because generally they're going to be having quite nutrient-rich foods and they're going to be cutting out a load of ultra-processed junk foods, which is generally going to be a step in the right direction. I think the problem comes really when we see that it's very inconvenient and it's very hard to stick to. So it's going to be hard to find raw foods consistently, and you're also going to have to eat a lot, right? Because these foods are low in calorie density, so you need to eat a lot of volume of foods to get enough calories. So what I think we tend to see is trying to stick to a raw vegan diet just makes you far more likely to give up and just go back to eating whatever because it's hard. And I think we all know that the reason so many diets fail is because after the first few weeks are done, when your motivation's really high, you can do anything for a few weeks. But sticking to something for months or years, which is really what you need to see positive health benefits, is going to be really tricky on a very restrictive diet. You know, think about it, like you can't go out to restaurants, or very few of them, because they're going to cook all the food. It's going to be difficult to eat with family and friends because people cook things, and you're probably going to have to spend more time in the kitchen preparing foods when they're raw. And we see evidence of this with, there's been a handful of reasonably high profile influencers online.
Bad influence.
Who have fallen off the vegan wagon and gone completely off being vegan. And it seems very often that these people were trying to follow and were advocating a raw vegan diet. So it's not always surprising that people fall off this. And if you can do it, then kudos to you. I really respect that, but most people really struggle. And I think another key part of this is really that one of the reasons that we cook food is to get great flavors and tastes in there. If things don't taste good, people stop eating them, right? So I knew this from my time as a food scientist. What we would see, and every, I think, big food company knows this, is that taste is really king. There are other factors as well. Convenience is a big one. But what we would find, for example, we would do market research and people would say, oh, I care about whether the packaging is recyclable. I care about the carbon footprint. I care about the calorie content, which I think they were being sincere. I think they did care about that kind of thing. But their actions often didn't really align with what they said. They just went for the tastiest thing most often. And I don't think that's a flaw in human nature at all. I think it's just people going for, when they're busy and stressed, like most of us are a lot of the time, we just go for what tastes good. So cooking food gives us so many opportunities to inject amazing flavor into our meals that we are going to struggle to do to the same extent when foods are raw. Now, that's not to say that raw foods can't taste good. I know they can taste excellent, but denying that whole branch of cooking, yeah, I think that's going to limit your taste potential in your food. Now, one interesting point, and certainly I think advocates of raw food will suggest that cooking destroys the nutrition of food and completely eliminates it. And there is sort of some truth to this, for sure. Certainly cooking at high temperatures for longer times can degrade the nutrition of food. For example, vitamin C. Vitamin C is not heat stable, so the longer it's exposed to high temperatures, the more it's going to degrade. However, we can actually see the opposite being true. For instance, cooked carrots can have 3 times the antioxidant content of raw carrots. And dry roasting nuts increases the mineral absorption from them. So I think as a general rule, cooking at high temperatures for a very long time can degrade the nutrition. But if you start with a very nutritious food, even if you lose some during cooking, it's still a healthy food, right? Now, as I mentioned, raw foods do tend to have a much lower calorie density than cooked foods. And for losing weight, this is ideal. This is really, really helpful. But if we're exclusively eating raw foods, that could actually put us in danger of becoming underweight. For example, in the news recently, there was this case of Zana Samsonova. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing her name wrong. And she very sadly passed away due to reportedly starvation and exhaustion. She actively promoted a raw vegan diet. And from the reports, she sort of subsisted pretty much entirely off tropical fruits. Now, I don't think this is necessarily representative of what many raw vegans would advocate for, but still, it kind of highlights to me what can happen if we restrict our diets too much. Now, I want to conclude by saying that I do believe it is perfectly possible to live a wonderful, healthy life on a raw vegan diet. But I do think it's challenging. I think it has to be planned quite carefully. And so I would say that, unless you have a particular medical condition that means a raw diet is better suited to you, I would say that you're making life much harder for yourself if you only eat raw foods. You're probably going to make your food taste less good, and you're just making it so much less convenient for yourself. Now, having said that, I do believe there is fantastic nutrition and taste in raw food. So I would definitely encourage us to eat plenty of raw fruits, vegetables, and nuts and seeds. These are going to really amplify our health and our enjoyment of our food. But perhaps don't exclusively eat these foods. Now, if cooking your food is something you want to do more of, but want to get faster at, then I have a free gift for you. I want to give you my guide on how to get hours of your life back in the kitchen when you're cooking. You're going to get my top 5 time-saving hacks that will allow you to create vegan meals quickly and easily. If that would be helpful to you, please click on the link in the description below. It is all yours. Now, I mentioned the blue zones, and I recently made a video reviewing the Netflix documentary Live to 100: Secrets of the Blue Zones. This is a fascinating series that really looks at how these people live and how they enjoy such vitality and longevity. If you'd like to watch that, you can click right here. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.